What is going on, everybody? It's AG here. So today we're going to be discussing some horror movies. I've got a tier list we're going to be talking about here in a second, but thanks for stopping by. Grab yourself some popcorn, grab yourself a soda, pull up a chair. I got my Reese's and my coffee ready, so let's get to it. So I'm about to put this tier list on your screen here in a second, but before we get to that, let's talk some TV for a little bit. So today we lost Barry and Succession. Both had their series finale. So that's two shows that are two of HBO's bigger shows that are gone. If you didn't watch the finale, I watched Barry just a few seconds ago, and poof, what a finale. That's an excellent show. One of the more underrated shows, in my opinion, really on the air right now, or was on there. It's gone now, I guess, but great show, and more people need to watch it. Not enough people watch that. So also, if you're watching this, if you got any questions, any comments, put them in the comment section. I'll get to those and answer them in a little bit. But also another show that ended last Thursday, was Yellowjackets. So Yellowjackets show on Showtime. Not enough people watch it. So make sure you watch that. So before we get to this tier list, I was going to talk about a couple movies I got today. So I got a video out today about that. But I got Kick-Ass and Joker for $10, $5 each. So not bad for $10. Two pretty solid movies. All right, so let me get this pulled up real quick. All right, so bear with me. It's my first live stream, so might have a few technical difficulties, but let's see what we can do here. All right, so you should be able to see it on your screen now. So we've got 5 categories here: great, good, watchable, so it's okay, but not very good, bad, and then absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch it, and I wouldn't watch it again. So we've got about 20, 25 movies here. There's 23 movies, actually, I believe. So all these are since 2019, so not too old. And so I'm going to read you off these movies now. So we got Barbarian, Scream 6, Scream 5, The Black Phone, Halloween Ends, Halloween Kills, Fear Street Part 1, it's a Netflix show, A Quiet Place Part 2, The Lodge, Freaky, The Invisible Man, It Chapter 2, the remake of Child's Play, or the requel, whatever you would call it, Annabelle Comes Home, Conjuring 3, Happy Death Day to You, Zombieland 2, Doctor Sleep, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Crawl, Ready or Not, The Lighthouse, and Spiral. So I'm going to be ranking these today. Also, if you're new here, I post movies, sports, and gaming, stuff like that. So if you got anything about that question-wise, just post those down in the comments. And also, while I'm going through these movies, if you got any comments on those movies, you disagree, or if you agree, or if you just got any thoughts on the movies, drop that in the comments as well. All right. All right, so we're going to be starting with Barbarian. So Barbarian came out last year. Pretty good movie. It takes a weird turn if you've seen it like midway through the movie. It takes a completely 180 turn that I did not expect was coming. It's got Bill Skarsgård in it that played Pennywise in It. So he is in it at the beginning of the movie, and like basically him and another girl both booked the same Airbnb, and they double booked it. Okay. And so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do here. And so they both end up staying, and they discover that in the basement, there's some stuff going on that I'm not going to get into, but it's some messed up stuff. So Barbarian, I enjoyed this movie, so I'm going to put it in the good category. There's not going to be too many movies in the great category. There's not a lot of movies I would put up there. When we're talking great, think like Exorcist, The Shining, stuff like that. Looks like we got a comment here. Bruinmeister says, since I don't watch scary movies, I've got nothing for this one except Zombieland. Well, Bruinmeister, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. If you got any other comments, let me know. Let me know what you thought of Zombieland, Brewmaster, and I'll put it up here. All right, so getting back to the tier list, okay? So Scream 6 here, okay? So Scream 6, this one came out this year, not too long ago, a few months ago. But this movie, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I have loved Scream 5 and Scream 6. I'm going to put this, believe it or not, in the great category. So before you get mad, these last two movies, Scream 5 and Scream 6, while they're not quite Scream level, they're not that good, but they were great in my opinion. I really enjoyed them. I think they got a good young cast, and them riffing off each other just fits perfectly. So Scream 6 going in the great category. All right, Brewmeister, let's see what you had to say. It's a classic, got to be on the good list. All right, so we're talking part 2 of Zombieland. Have you seen part 2 of Zombieland, Brewmeister? Part 1 was good. Have you seen part 2, though? If you think it's a classic on the good list, we'll see. I'm almost there. I think I have a few more movies till I get there. Let me know where you would rate it, Brewmeister, and then I'll put it in here. All right, so while we're on that topic, Scream 5. Okay, so coming off Scream 6, so Scream 5. Another one, like I said, with Scream 5, I really enjoyed this movie. I know a lot of people didn't, but I'm going to put it, let's go good. Let's go in the good category. It was good. Enjoyed it a lot. So I was shocked with Scream 5 and Scream 6. Actually, you know what? Let's move Scream 6 to good too. Now I think about it. They're not quite great. Scream 1 would be great, not these two. But these two are really enjoyable, really good to watch, and similar to Scream 6, Scream 5 I just enjoyed a lot. All right, there we go, Brewmeister. I agree. Okay, I thought we were talking about part 1. Part 2, not so much. Part 2, we'll get to that in a second, but I did not like it. So he says he'd put it in the bad category. We'll see when we get there, but I'm probably going to agree with you. Here, let's go ahead and go to it while we're talking about it. All right, so Zombieland, was it Double Tap? Zombieland Double Tap. Okay, so came out a few years ago. I'm going to put it in the bad category. So I'm going to agree with Brewmeister on this one. Zombieland Part 2, Double Tap, whatever you want to call it, was not very entertaining in my opinion. Part 1 was good, but this one, I don't know if it was just too late, if they missed the bus, missed the train on this, but I really didn't enjoy this one. But yeah, I really wasn't a fan of Zombieland Double Tap, and which kind of sucks because I actually kind of liked the first one, so that was kind of a disappointment. All right, so next up we've got The Black Phone. I know a lot of people, this was their best scary movie of last year, their best horror movie, and it's got Ethan Hawke in it. Basically, he's the bad guy in this one. Basically, he kidnaps this kid, and he kidnaps kids basically in general, and they're trying to get this kid out of the basement pretty much is what is going on in this movie. Black Phone, I didn't like it as much as a lot of people did, but it was still watchable in my opinion. So I'm gonna put it in watchable, but it wasn't quite that good, that great category in my opinion. I know a lot of people said it was great or good probably in their opinion, but not to me. I thought it was watchable though, so it was okay. Ethan Hawke's usually pretty good. Now, if I had Sinister on this list, that would be in the great category. Yep, I agree, Brewmaster. Missed the zombie train. They should have struck during COVID. I don't remember when this movie came out. It might have been 2019, but if it would have came out like the year COVID, I bet it would have got a lot more watching. But yeah, part 2 was just a little too late. He said couldn't do what the original did. I agree. Like a lot of sequels, a lot of sequels can't live up to the hype of the first one. There's very few far in between. Only ones I can think of, some people say, I guess Aliens is better than Alien. And then also I would say Conjuring 2 I actually like more than Conjuring 1. And those are both probably in the great category for me. All right, so moving right along here. All right, 2 movies that really, unfortunately, were not my cup of tea. Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. All right, so Halloween 1, the original, I'm a big fan of. I watch it every Halloween. I try to watch it at least once a year on Halloween, if not more, because Michael Myers is the icon. But see right here, we've got Halloween Kills. So this is the one that came out, I want to say not last year. It would have been 2020, 2019. This one came out day and day, like the next one did on Peacock. But this one, Halloween Kills, I'm going to have to put in absolutely terrible. This movie I just didn't like, man. I know a lot of people kind of like this, but this one just absolutely sucked in my opinion, or absolutely terrible, I guess what you would say. But I didn't enjoy this one. It was almost so dumb that it was hard to watch. Like, they're building up the mob in the bar, then they go to the hospital to try to find Michael, and then basically at the end, I just didn't like it. It did have some interesting kill scenes. Let me see here. It did have some interesting kill scenes, like he's saying here. Let me click the right one. Great kill scenes. But the movie itself just didn't quite do it for me. I wasn't a fan of this one, unfortunately. He says the next neck snap of the staircase. That was pretty good one too, though. It was a pretty good kill. Now, I did have a lot of gore in this one. This one was pretty dark and gory to watch, but movie as a whole, I just really didn't like it. All right, so let's see here. Next up, we've got Halloween Ends. So this is the one that came out last year. Uh, hmm. I thought this one was going to be better than it was because they took an interesting turn with this, tried to focus on a different character. They tried to go with more Season the Witch vibes here, which is kind of a cult classic now. So it wasn't necessarily exactly Halloween with Michael Myers, but it was good. But this one just couldn't live up to the hype in my opinion. But it was better than Halloween Kills in my opinion. So Halloween Ends, I'm going to put in the bad category, and hopefully they can get this franchise back on track, man. I don't know with Halloween Ends. I don't know if the franchise officially over. You know, now Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are kind of done with their saga, but hopefully they can figure out how to maybe move on without Michael. I don't know. That'd be something I'd like to see. You know, but will that happen? I don't know. I doubt it, but hopefully they can. Brewmaster, I agree. Jamie Leon said yes. So maybe they can get her come back. I don't know, but these last two I haven't really liked. Halloween 2018 was enjoyable, but these last two, it seemed like they didn't have a clear direction where they were going. You know, I thought they were going to go one way with this franchise, this sequel trilogy, requel, whatever you call it, but they really didn't live up to the hype for me. All right, so next up we've got Fear Street Part 1. So this is a Netflix series. They released a trilogy of these movies, and the trailers looked interesting. They've actually got some big cast in this. So Max from Stranger Things is in this. She is the main girl, and I think the second one. And I watched the first one and was hoping I'd like it because I'm always up for a good scary movie or a good horror movie. But this one just really didn't do it to me. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go with absolutely terrible. The trailers look good. Like I said, the cast looked good, and even the premise seemed good. But this movie itself just wasn't very good. So absolutely terrible for sure. This movie just sucked. I don't know which would be worse, Halloween Ends or this one, but Fear Street, don't watch it. If you've seen part 2 or part 3 though, and you liked it more than part 1, let me know because I didn't get around to part 2 and part 3 because they just didn't look very good. And part 1 really turned me off. So and not in that kind of way, but part 1 really turned me off to where I didn't even want to watch part 2 and part 3. All right, so next up we've got A Quiet Place Part 2. So A Quiet Place, the first one I liked, but the only mistake I made with this one was I watched A Quiet Place in like a dine-in movie theater. So there were people constantly talking the whole movie, and it's a quiet place. Like there's no talking in this movie. So I was hoping that I could enjoy it, but instead I was constantly getting asked or hearing people getting asked what food they were eating, what they're eating for dinner, and that kind of ruined the experience for me. But I watched part 1 again after it came out came out on home release, and it was pretty good. But the first one I did like. Second one, I don't know. It was hit or miss for me. So Brewmaster said he liked part 1 and still needs to watch part 2. So part one I really like too. Part 2, it was enjoyable, so I'll put it in the watchable category. I don't know how good it was. It had potential. It's got Cillian Murphy, the guy from The Dark Knight, Scarecrow. He is in this movie. He's also going to be in Oppenheimer, which is coming out pretty soon with Christopher Nolan. But he's pretty good in this, and I like the cast here. But John Krasinski's died in the first one, so he's not back here. And it had an interesting premise, you know, like what else besides their family is going on in this world? Like what the heck's going on in the Quiet Place world besides just this family, you know? And then Brewmaster says Cillian Murphy played Tommy Shelby too. He did. All right. He's in a lot of movies. He's an underrated actor, Cillian Murphy. I enjoy his stuff. And he usually works with Nolan. So when you work with Christopher Nolan, it's hard to go wrong. All right, so next up we've got The Lodge. Okay, so The Lodge, a lot of people probably hadn't seen this one. I watched it a few years ago, and The Lodge is like this family, and basically the dad and two kids, and then his girlfriend. Okay, so his girlfriend has to basically stay at this lodge of sorts. Okay, with the kids, and she thinks some weird stuff's going on. She isn't entirely sure. They're out like in the snow, out in the middle of nowhere. So basically, they're the only house or the only lodge for 10 miles. So nobody can hear if something goes down. And basically, some stuff does go down, and she's trying to figure out, did the kids do this to me, or is there some other forces at work here? So it was watchable. I'm not sure what it's on. I watched it on Peacock, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, so I'm not sure if it's still on there or where it's at. But it wasn't seen by a lot of people. But it's actually not a bad movie, The Lodge. Brewmeister says the goat. So we're still talking about Cillian Murphy, or are you talking about The Lodge here? Because if you got The Lodge as the goat, I don't know, we might have some issues. But I assume you're talking about Cillian Murphy. All right, next up we've got Freaky. So Freaky, kind of remedying off the Freaky, what was it called? Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis. So Freaky has Vince Vaughn in it, and it's got the girl from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. She's in this movie, and basically they swap bodies. So Vince Vaughn is a killer, and he gets transported into this teenage girl's body, and then the teenage girl gets transported into a killer's body. So they're trying to switch back because I think the police, if I remember correctly, I haven't seen this in a while, but I think the police are on the hunt for Vince Vaughn. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But this movie was enjoyable. I'd say watchable. It's got Vince Vaughn and, like I said, the girl from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I'm not entirely sure what her name is, but it was a pretty enjoyable movie. Freaky, like I said, basically remedying off the Freaky Friday concept where they switch bodies. So that's always an interesting concept. Yeah, Nolan. Okay, you're talking about Nolan. Nolan, I agree. He is the GOAT. He doesn't make any bad movies, man. He's got a good list. I'll have to do a tier list of or just I have to do a ranking of Nolan movies coming soon, because Nolan can't do any wrong, man. That dude, he's a genius. Best director on earth. All right, so next up we've got The Invisible Man. This is actually, The Invisible Man came out, I think, in 2020, or 2019, into 2019, 2020. This is the last movie I saw before COVID hit. So this is the last movie I saw in theaters. And maybe that kind of sways how I feel about this movie. I don't know. But Invisible Man, I'm going to go with, let's go with good. Okay, so Invisible Man was a good movie. This is, out of all the good movies, this is probably my favorite one. This is borderline great, in my opinion. The concept here is interesting. So the Invisible Man probably gives the hint of what the movie's about, but there's an invisible man basically haunting this girl, and so nobody believes her when she's getting tossed across the room. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So somebody like straight up picks her up and chunks her across the room. And the behind the scene footage of this is actually pretty interesting. So you got somebody in a green suit like lifting her up and throwing her. Pretty cool to watch. But this movie was enjoyable. Like I said, last movie I saw before COVID hit, but it was a good movie, great movie, borderline great movie. I won't say great movie, but good movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it because it's really good. All right, let's see here. Next up, we've got It Chapter 2. Oh, man. It Chapter 2. It Chapter 1. Now, that is a great movie. Probably in my top 5 horror movies of all time, It Chapter 1. So I was really excited for It Chapter 2 because It Chapter 1, it kind of gave me the Stranger Things feels vibes, with the kids and horror movie type stuff. Now, Chapter 2 kind of is the adult version, so that really doesn't apply here, but they kind of flash back to the kid version some. It Chapter 2, though, it's got an outstanding cast, actually. So Jessica Chastain, it's got Bill Hader, which was in Barry that we talked about earlier. And it's got all the kids coming back, but this movie was just too long, man. It Chapter 2 almost put me to sleep, which is hard to say because, like I said, It Chapter 1 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Sorry about that. I need some water. But yeah, It Chapter 2 is going to be in the bad category for me, which sucks because I might need to rewatch this movie, but because I had such high expectations for it from Chapter 1 that maybe that made it worse in my opinion. But I know a lot of people have said it's bad, so I'm going to take their word for it as well. But maybe I need to rewatch it. Maybe I'll do that tonight, actually, after this. Maybe I'll rewatch it that way. We can see if it goes up in my rankings any. But yeah, It Chapter 2 was just bad. It wasn't absolutely terrible because there's things to enjoy here because I like the franchise. I like the first one. Loved it, actually. But yeah, this one just didn't do it for me. And the director, did Andy Muschietti direct this one too? He's directing The Flash. He directed Chapter 1. I don't know if he did Chapter 2. I think he did, though. So I like him as a director, but this one just didn't do it for me. But maybe I need to rewatch it. All right, so next up we got Child's Play. Child's Play came out in I think 2019, maybe 2020. So it's like a requel, I think is what they call it, to where it's not a pure sequel, but it is continuing the franchise, but basically they're kind of redoing it almost like a reboot, but mini reboot, not exactly happening. All right, so Brewmaster says, can't do clowns. Joe Dirt's parents scared me. Clowns are tough, man. I couldn't do either. I'm like Kramer on Seinfeld. So if I see a clown in real life, no, man. But I know that first scene in It Chapter 1, whenever Pennywise is in the sewer and calling Billy, not Billy, what's the kid's name? I can't even think of his name. Georgie. There we go. Georgie. Yeah, whenever he's calling Georgie to the sewage drain. But yeah, Joe Dirt, man, puts the lotion on his skin. For anybody that hasn't seen Joe Dirt, that's a riff on Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. They've got Buffalo Bob. Puts the lotion on its skin. All right, so next up, like I said, we got Child's Play from 2019 2020. So it's a requel, and it's got Aubrey Plaza in it. I actually enjoyed this movie. So I'm going to put it in watchable. A lot of people did not like this movie, but I enjoyed this movie. Chucky, it's a pretty good franchise. It's solid. You enjoy watching it. It's like it was Annabelle before Annabelle. So it's basically a cursed doll. But this one I liked because they did it kind of more robotic, So, sorry, I'm laughing in the comment section. Agreed, but agreed to the comment. I'm not gonna post that one live, but agreed. But yeah, Child's Play was entertaining, and I hope they get a sequel to this movie. I know they did a TV series actually this year on Sci-Fi, and I think they're in like season 2 or 3, but I heard it's not doing too good, so hopefully they can get the movie back going. All right, so next up we've got Annabelle Comes Home. Annabelle Comes Home is the third movie in the trilogy from the Conjuring spinoff. Annabelle, so like I said with Chucky is a doll that is possessed by something. Annabelle is based on an actual doll that is possessed as well. Sorry, guys, my throat's dry nut. But yeah, Annabelle Comes Home is the third movie in the trilogy. The first movie in Annabelle trilogy was okay. It wasn't very good, but the second one was actually really good. But again, it's spinoff of the Conjuring series. And Annabelle Comes Home, I would say I'd put in the good category. I love the Conjuring universe, and the spinoffs are pretty good too, in my opinion. But this one is kind of more of a haunted house type of movie. So they're at the Warren's house, so Ed and Lorraine Warren's house, and their kid basically is getting babysat for the night. And they open the door to the basement to where all of this possessed stuff is. And like I said, Annabelle's in there. And in these movies, Annabelle is kind of always the ringleader of anything going on. And basically all the things get loose and start attacking the kids, attacking the kid that's there. And I think there's two girls that are babysitting, I think. But yeah, so they're doing that, and they start getting attacked by all these different things. Brewmeister says the previews for that movie scared me bad. That was a pretty scary one, man. The Conjuring universe in general. If you haven't seen Conjuring 2, that's probably the scariest one in the series that's actually scary. This one really wasn't that scary, but it had a few jump scares, I think, if I remember correctly. Now, I did like The Nun. I know a lot of people don't like The Nun, but the best one in this franchise is probably The Conjuring 2, in my opinion. The Conjuring 2, if you don't know, we're going to go off in this rant for a little bit because we're done talking about Annabelle. But Conjuring 2, if you don't know. So Conjuring 2 is based on a true story. It's like, I think they call it the English Amityville. So it takes place in the United Kingdom, but it's the Amityville horror of Britain of sorts. And basically, if you haven't seen it, watch the actual footage from the real life version that they're mimicking in this movie. Because in that movie, the girl is like they're talking to the girl that's possessed. And they're talking to the girl that's possessed, and she starts talking like whatever dude is possessed her. It's like this 80-year-old man. So she's talking and just like, my name is Buffalo Bill, stuff like that. But watching the real stuff makes it even scarier because it looks like the real version. Like they did a pretty good job making it look eye for eye like the real stuff that went on. All right, Brewmaster says 2 is the only one that I've watched like halfway through with a chick, terrified for months. So it was pretty scary. Conjuring 2 is probably in my top 10 horror movies of all time. It's excellent to watch. I actually think I got it. I got it on movie somewhere. I got it on disc somewhere, but it's way up there. I can't really grab it. But it's a good movie. I think they're on. I want to say they're on HBO Max, or sorry, what is it, Max now? I don't even know. But I think they're on Max. I'm not 100% sure. But if you hadn't watched the Conjuring universe, watch them. And if you stopped on Conjuring 1, don't, because I know Conjuring 1 was great, but Conjuring 2, in my opinion, is even better. So watch the whole franchise. Watch the whole series. Those are some great movies. But anyways, all right, let me get back on track. Let me get a drink real quick before I dive into the next one. All right, so next up we got Conjuring 3, okay? So unfortunately, like I said, I love Conjuring 1 and Conjuring 2, but Conjuring 3 just didn't really do it for me. Conjuring 3 came out during COVID, so it was like straight to HBO Max. So I don't know if that impacted at all, not being able to watch it in theaters. But Conjuring 3, I didn't like. Okay, so Conjuring 3, I'm gonna put in the bad category. I didn't enjoy this one much, man. I wish I would have, because like I said, I really like a lot of the movies in the Conjuring universe, but Conjuring 3 didn't do it for me. Which sucks because this is a good cast and it's a good series. It's a good franchise as a whole, but this is one of the weaker entries in the series, in my opinion. Like, I would even watch The Nun and the first Annabelle over Conjuring 3. Conjuring 3 just wasn't very good, in my opinion. All right, let's see. Next up, we've got Happy Death Day to You. So if you haven't seen this one, Happy Death Day is the first one. Happy Death Day to You is the second one. But this is like a movie where it's kind of like Groundhog Day of sorts. So this girl basically keeps on waking up every time after she's killed. So she's on a night where she's constantly getting murdered. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so she wakes up on a night where she's just constantly getting murdered by this person in their mascot's mask. And basically, she's trying to figure out who her killer is, because every time she dies, she wakes up on the same day over and over and over. So it's got the Groundhog Day type of feel. And this one's kind of more funny. It's more like a dark comedy, I guess, because while there is horror, killing, stuff like that, it's also pretty funny to watch. And this movie, Happy Death Day to You, wasn't as good as the first one, in my opinion. Burnmaster said first one was real good. I agree. That one was a good movie. Second one wasn't quite as good, but I would still say it's watchable. So first one I would put in definitely good, borderline great, just because it doesn't take itself seriously. So it's actually enjoyable to watch. But part 2, though, I would say is watchable. It's not good, it's not great, but it's watchable. All right, so next up we've got Dr. Sleep. Let me get a drink, because I'm going to be talking about this one for a second. All right, so Dr. Sleep, I was really high for this movie, which, same as It Chapter 2, I was really high for this movie because it's a sequel to The Shining, if you don't know. And The Shining is in my top 2 scary movies of all time. That and The Exorcist are neck and neck. And so I was really pumped for this movie because you've got a sequel to one of the best horror movies of all time. You've got Ewan McGregor as the lead cast, which is Obi-Wan for those that don't know. So you got a great cast here. Then you've got director Mike Flanagan, which, if you don't know, Mike Flanagan directed Haunting at Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor. Those are both Netflix horror shows. If you hadn't watched those, do that right now. Go ahead and watch those, then come back and watch this. So go watch Hill House and Bly Manor, then come back. But you got a great director, great cast, and just a great movie premise, okay? So this movie, I know a lot of people love this movie, but it really disappointed me. Now, it may be because of the same thing as It Chapter 2, where I just had such high expectations that it's impossible for it to live up to. I don't know. But with It Chapter 2, or sorry, not It Chapter 2, we already talked about that, but Dr. Sleep, I'm going to put this in the watchable category. I changed my mind. I'm going to watch this after I'm done here, not It Chapter 2, but because I need to rewatch this one. This one has so much going for it. There's no way that can be bad, but I think similar to this one, I just had such high expectations that there's no way it could have reached those expectations. Because like I said, you've got those 3 things going for it that I named, and just looking at the trailer, it gets me kind of excited to watch it again. But I haven't rewatched this one since I saw it in theaters, but it just, I don't know, it was kind of boring to me the first time I watched it. Kind of slow, it goes a different route from The Shining. The Shining is more, leaves a lot to be thought, leaves a lot to think. So All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It's quotable, and it's just Jack Nicholson's off the rails in this movie. It's got a great cast, and Doctor Sleep just didn't live up to the expectations for me. And maybe that's because, like I said, I just had such high expectations. Maybe that hurt it. But yeah, Doctor Sleep. I need to rewatch this one, so I might rewatch that after this actually. So scratch on it. Chapter 2. We'll postpone that. I'm gonna rewatch Doctor Sleep after I'm done here. All right, so next up we've got Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So this movie came out a few years ago and is based on a series of books, I believe. It's more of a it's more of a kid friendly one, not kid friendly necessarily, but made with kids in mind. So kids can watch this movie because, like I said, it's uh kind of not goosebumps, but borderline. I don't know the right word to say it, but it's based on a book, like a kids book series, and that type of kids horror, kids scary movie. This movie actually wasn't bad though. I'm gonna put it in the watchable category as well. Seems like watchable categories piling up, but scary stories to tell in the dark. It tells a bunch of different scary stories, if you will. So it's got a bunch of different plots going on at once. And so basically it tells you or takes you from story to story around with a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different scary stories going on at once. And this one was actually enjoyable for me. It's got so much going on that you don't really get dead set on one thing. So it's just a bunch of different stories, and that it keeps it fresh. It doesn't outrun its welcome, overrun its welcome. And so I think it was like hour and a half. So nowadays movies are all over 2 hours, which makes it pretty hard to watch. But this movie is straight to the point, and it bounces around with different stories, so it was enjoyable. All right, so next up here we've got Crawl. Crawl. Before we go to Crawl, like I said, if you're new here, we talk about movies, sports, and gaming. Today we're talking about a horror movie tier list of like 3 movies, I think 20, 25 movies somewhere in there from the last 4 years since 2019. Basically, we're just ranking them from great to absolutely terrible. If you got any questions, put them in the comment section, and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. And maybe I'll even post them on here. But yeah, if you got any questions, let me know. If you got any comments on any of the movies I'm talking about, post them as well. All right, so back on track. We're going to talk about Crawl. Crawl, if you have not seen it, it's kind of like a Jaws movie, but it's an alligator. Okay, so basically the city, it's on. I can't remember where it's based, but think of like a coastal city. You know what I mean? So they get flooded with like a tsunami or hurricane. I can't remember exactly, but basically the city gets flooded, and so crocodiles start swimming everywhere. And think Jaws, like I said, because this crocodile is just attacking this girl and her family. I think it's her dad that she lives with. And so they're trapped in the house with the crocodile I won't say running loose, but swimming loose, basically. And so I think she escapes, if I remember correctly. I'm not going to spoil the whole movie for you, but I think she escapes and comes back to save her dad. And that crocodile is like waiting in the basement. I might be wrong there, but I'm going to put this movie in the good category. It was good. One of the better movies in this good category, actually, believe it or not. But Crawl, it's not quite Jaws level, but it is enjoyable. So, like I said, think Jaws, but a lesser version. But it might be better than a lot of the Jaws sequels, I'm going to be honest. So, Crawl's actually a good movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. All right, Ready or Not. That's next up. Okay, so Ready or Not, if you've not seen it, came out, I don't know, within the last few years, like I said. But this is a female-driven movie. So the main protagonist is a female. Basically, she marries into this family. She gets married to this guy on her wedding day. Her family's rich, by the way. They invite her back to their mansion, and basically they have, apparently, unbeknownst to her, but apparently they have this ritual where to stay with this family, you have to survive this night. So basically, she comes in after their marriage, after they get married, the day of their wedding, and basically I might be wrong, spins a wheel or something like that, picking a game to play. So she think his family asked her, do you want to play a game? Like, or not, do you want to play a game? That's all, but pick a game basically to play and spin the wheel. And so basically she thinks it's like a game night, like board games, type of board games night. I think she lands on tag, if I remember correctly. All right, Brewmaster, I'll catch you later, man. Thanks for stopping by, Brewmaster. Go watch Crawl. Yeah, so where were we? Ready or Not. Okay, so Ready or Not, like I said, is like I said, basically they're playing a game in this movie, and so I think they end up playing tag, and so but their tag is like over the top. So instead of just playing tag, basically they're hunting her with like bow and arrows and stuff, crap like that. So they give her like 2 hours, an hour to go hide, basically, and so she thinks they're just playing. She doesn't know, but she sees them like walking around with axes, bow and arrows, stuff like that, trying to hunt her. And so basically this movie is a hunt movie. They're trying to hunt her basically and find her and kill her. So long story short, this family's freaking psycho, and she realizes that, and she realizes, oh, this ain't a normal game of tag. They're actually trying to hunt and kill me. So this movie, actually, I'm gonna put this movie, uh, good or great. This is a tough one. Uh, hmm, Stuff. I'm gonna go with a good category. I know it doesn't look like I'm putting a lot of movies in the great, but it takes a lot to get great, in my opinion. Probably none of the movies on this list are gonna reach great, but Ready or Not might be the best on this good list. Okay, but Ready or Not is excellent to watch. It's got, I think her name's Samara Weaving. She was the girl at the beginning of the newest Scream movie. She gets killed in Scream 6 right at the beginning. That's her. She's the lead in this movie. And if you haven't seen it, this movie is probably the one you need to watch out of this whole ranking today. It's probably the best movie on here. It's got a pretty big cast, and it's an interesting concept that is pretty rewatchable. I've rewatched it once, and it still held its good, held the good category. All right, so we got two left here. So next up, we've got The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse has Robert Pattinson, William Dafoe, which automatically pretty good cast. And I had semi expectations for this movie just because the cast alone. You're like, oh yeah, it's got Batman, it's got Green Goblin in it. This is gonna be a good movie. Unfortunately, this movie I'm gonna put it right on absolutely terrible. This movie might be the worst movie on this list. This movie was weird to watch. It's a weird movie, first off, and it's terrible to watch. I mean, it's just so out there. Uh, and it's in black and white for one, which I really don't like. And the director of this movie has a lot of movies that are kind of iffy for a lot of people. A lot of people don't enjoy them, and I guess I'm one of those people. But this movie, basically, they both run a lighthouse. They work on the lighthouse, and so they basically keep the lighthouse burning to make the light, constantly go. And so they're basically out on this island by themselves, and they start daydreaming, seeing a bunch of crap go down because they don't know if they're envisioning stuff, if they're just going crazy, or if this stuff's really going on. Like, uh, Robert Pattinson sees a mermaid a bunch of times in this movie, and he doesn't know what's going on. William Dafoe don't know what's going on. But this movie, I wanted to like it because of the cast. But this movie sucked. I'll be honest. I've talked enough about this movie. Don't go watch it. All right. So last up here, looks like we got Spiral. Let me get a drink real quick. All right. So Spiral, if you have not watched it, is the newest movie in the Saw franchise, and I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise. Gets hated on a little too much for me because it gets hated on a bunch because of how the last movies were, but in reality, it had so many movies because it was making money. Like, and I know the last movies got a little gory. The last movies weren't as good, but the first two or three Saw movies are peak horror in my opinion. The first two in particular. This is another one where the second one might be better than the original, but Saw 1 and Saw 2, and even I'll throw Saw 3 in there, but Saw 1 and Saw 2 are peak horror in my opinion. So Spiral is the newest one that came out. Jigsaw's dead at this point in the Saw franchise, I think. I mean, he's died and came back a few times, so I don't know. But this movie follows Chris Rock, and basically somebody has continued Jigsaw's plan, kind of. So continued his killings. And so Chris Rock is a detective trying to figure out what's going on. So it's got a pretty solid cast here. Chris Rock, I think Samuel L. Jackson is Chris Rock's dad here. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise in general. But this movie, I'm going to let's go in the watchable category. So Spiral, I'm going to put in the watchable category. It was definitely watchable. Not the best scary movie ever. Not the best in the Saw franchise. Not even the third best movie, probably. Maybe the third. But it was enjoyable. It was watchable. I really hope they can fix this franchise because, like I said, I enjoyed the first two. After that, they've just been straight gore. I enjoyed Jigsaw and Spiral, so hopefully they can do something similar to Spiral. Like in that universe, in that world, but a different concept of sorts. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it looks like no movies made it into the great category. So maybe next time I do a tier list, some movies will make it into the great category. I don't know, but it takes a lot to be a great movie, in my opinion. None of these are really that. Out of this list, if you're looking for movies to watch, I would say anything in that good category is watchable. Like, must or not watchable. That's obviously watchable category, but must watch. But out of those, I would say Crawl, Ready or Not, Invisible Man, and Barbarian are probably the best four in my opinion. Scream series is always solid. But if you haven't watched any in the good category, definitely go do it as soon as possible because those are some good movies in my opinion. Let me know what movies you would pick out of these, like how you would rank them down in the comments. And then if you got any other questions, let me know in the comments. But share this video if you enjoyed it with other people that you would think would enjoy it. If you hadn't yet subscribed if you like movie, sports, and gaming. And like I said, this is my first live stream. I'm going to try to do a little more pretty frequently, more often, so we can get that rolling. But with that being said, that's my list for the night. I don't got too much else to add here. But if you enjoyed what you saw, like I said, subscribe. But hey, I'm about to head out for the night. So until next time, AG out. And as always, stay classy, San Diego.